Your hand will hold me still. I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. I'm fearfully and wonderfully
Hello and welcome back. You are watching the Education Revolution live, happening right here, right now, right in front of you. And today, Merry Christmas. First of all, wow, I'm extremely thrilled that we are on here every freaking week. And this week, we will be doing something a little bit different. Typically, I have a guest, but today I thought that, for one, it was a lot happening. So I thought I was just reflecting if I should do the stream in English or not. But I'm gonna to do it because it just felt right and I started that way out of reflex. So today I'm gonna interview myself. I'm gonna ask myself all the questions that I for one ask myself all the time anyways, but I also feel like people wouldn't even think of asking me these questions, and I feel like it could be really valuable. And so my special guest tonight at Saturday night's live Education Revolution is gonna be me, and we are gonna talk about what is important. I think that is the core issue in figuring out a potential curriculum, what you want to learn, what you want your time, what you want your limited time on this earth to direct towards. So I'm reading a really fascinating book currently, which is called 4,000 Hours. And, well, that kind of spoiled it, but the premise of the book is that, on average, people only become 4,000 weeks. A time management for such a cool book. Wait, 4,000 weeks. I can by Oliver Burkeman, and it's time management for mortals. As I believe you may also be a mortal, it's definitely a recommended read. And what I found what touched me, particularly now in these times where the weeks just seem to be flying by, is this whole premise of, like, yes, you only got probably 4,000 to max 6,000 weeks. I don't even think there's anyone that lived more than 6,000 weeks. And 4,000 weeks is around 8 years, but we calculated it. It's actually a little bit less, so like 78 years. It's divided by okay. So it's 75 years. And the average life expand in Germany, let's say, it's 8 years. So what is weeks per so 52, I divided it by 53, 76 years. All right, 4,000 weeks is 76 years, and the average lifespan is 80 years or 81 years in Germany. Let's take 81 times 52. So you got 4,212. But let's assume that you are going to be 110 because amazingness is 5,720 weeks. And that's not that much. Like, I have a calendar here, and I also gifted one to a kid, let's say. I don't know how much I want to, but I gifted to actually a few friends like calendars that basically span over 80 years, and it's not that long. Like, you can put it on one piece of paper. I have one right there. uh, I can figure out how to show it to you later, or you just Google wait, but why, and I will show it to you in a second. I do see that this is a different version than typically, but wait, but why life calendar. He actually introduced that sort of your life in weeks calendar, and there's an amazing blog post that I will show you. Here, this one is super old. Look at this. Years. This is when you're turning 90. And I imagine, look at this. This is weeks of the year and age. And this is where you turn 90. Each box is a week. And it's not that crazy. Like, all of this time, elementary and middle school and high school and college, this part is all what traditional education is focused on. And then this is career, typically, and life expectancy, typical life expectancy, and weak women were married on average today in 1960s today. Well, it's a really fascinating read. Wait, but why? And then just put life calendar, and you will find it. And I feel like a lot of people could get stressed by this kind of outlook, particularly if you think, look, this is where Kurt Cobain already died, or Mozart, or Michael Jackson, Steve Jobs, Hitler, Martin Luther King. It's kind of fascinating to think about death because it could stress a lot of people out. But it's the key to escaping FOMO, and I feel like, whoopsie, I feel like FOMO is such a huge topic, particularly also for me, and in education as well. Like, all of education is trying to prepare us for a future that is unknown, and is trying to prepare us just in case. It's giving us a lot of information just in case we need it, but without ever like deeply thinking about what is actually needed for this individual. And then it's taking a lot of these 4,000 or 5,000 weeks away from human beings, where they could spend their time doing what actually matters. And something that I realized while traveling is, the more I traveled, the more I realized that I need to travel so much more, because when you travel, you meet all these amazing people that tell you where they have been. You meet so many travelers, and they share all these amazing stories, and it's super inspiring. But you you want to then go there too, and you almost want to travel more and more the more you travel for a while, and because you feel like you would miss out on so many experiences the world could give to you. And I had this crazy thought today that maybe in certain situations giving up on something can be good. Hear me out there. I'm not saying that you should give up what is actually important to you, but we live in a culture where we want to, where we seem to be under the illusion that, and I have been there, definitely, maybe I'm still there, that we can experience and try to experience everything that the world could give us, and you can't. Like you have to give up that idea that you can experience everything that the world can give you as experience, and you can't even experience all the good things that the world can give you. It's not possible. So you have to select which good things you want to experience and which things in general you want to experience. And we also can't ever get anything done. And the same with the more you experience, the more you want to experience. It's even stronger with the more tasks you do, the more tasks you get to do. And there's no way that you will ever have done everything on your to-do list, if or on the world's to-do list for you, like your email. There is this notion of going to inbox zero, and it's a really cool idea, but like having zero emails in your emails in your inbox, and your inbox is really just a great place for other people's to-do lists to show up in your in your email system or in your life. But if you try to go to inbox zero every single day, you will be known as someone who always responds to emails quickly, and then you will get more emails. And the same with trying to get everything done. Like I was the biggest fan of David Allen getting things done, and I created this whole system around it. And not just David Allen, of course. That was in the beginning when I was like 16. But I got really into productivity systems. I'm still into like having to pay money if I don't do what I want to do. And I still think it's a good idea if it's directed at the right things. But if you just do it for the sake of it, it's not. So let's bring it back to education and why I think to be aware of one's death and one's mortality is extremely important in education and right now in this sometimes hectic time that we have in Christmas, even though it's meant to be about the most important things even more than any other time. Some people get lost in the busyness of it. And if you really connect with, wow, okay, 4,000 or 5,000 weeks, how am I gonna spend this week? And I don't want you to get hung up on this time. I just want you to give up these notions that you can get everything done, that you can prepare for everything, that you can experience everything. And the importance of the topic today. The importance of the topic today is deciding what is important. How do you figure out what is important to you, and how do I figure out, or we as education revolutionaries figure out what is important to teach, or to show people that are coming into this life and want to live a good life, want to live a good life, ideally of service, because education is not just there. I think it's more important to serve the individual, but it's really also there to serve the community and the state and the world and humanity and Earth. And like an ideal outcome, I feel like, of a great education system is that someone is free, truly free in their thinking. And I know that I'm talking a lot today about my intuition, of course, and it won't be as researched as typically. No, it's heavily researched, I guess, but it's researched intuition. And I know that I will always change my mind because changing your mind is a sign of growth and a sign of true learning, and I'm really into true learning. So this is just a preamble. So now I'm freer to talk to you honestly and as truthfully as I can right now. So yes, I have lost my train of thought that I had earlier. But how the freak? What should we teach? Like, what should we give learners as what? So I do believe that a lot. I'm kind of remembering where I was, but now I opened a new thread and it's freaking me out in my mind, and I'm trying to decide which way to go, but I'm keeping with this one. Just letting you know what is happening inside my head so you understand why I'm stuck at something. But I do believe that kids that are 6 years old, it's kind of hard to say, hey, welcome to school. So you're going to die, and you have to decide what is worth spending your time with. But at the same time, like, maybe not as formulated as crassly, but you can still figure out what is important to them right now. And then a huge part of what education is for. Oh yes, what education is for. Now I'm bringing back what we were talking earlier, is to teach them what is important. What should they focus on? Yes, I think, like, yes, a part of it is what Elon Musk says. Like, he has this quote: "Education is basically just downloading algorithms and information into your brain, and it's super bad in traditional education." But I don't think that's all education is. Like, God, then yes, his Neuralink idea of streaming information in your brain really makes sense. But and I'm a huge Elon Musk fan, but I think he was really wrong there. And I think it's also about teaching people values, and it's about teaching people appreciation for certain things, and that is a really dangerous way, and it's about making people free. That's where I was going earlier, but while being free, teaching them the value of contributing and teaching them ways to reach their emotional and physical, to reach all their needs that they have emotional, physical, spiritual, and so on needs, and teaching them a way to reach all of those, to achieve all of those in a healthy way, in a way that is of service and of creation and not of destruction and not of taking but of giving, and teaching them the appreciation of and the possibility of doing that, because I believe in human beings, and I believe if they are truly free and they know how to fulfill all their needs that they have, that we all have, in a positive way, that I believe the vast majority would choose the good, the path of giving, the path of servitude, or of like the most positive way of servitude out of one's own desire to contribute to the world, and like that's kind of what I like about true entrepreneurship. True entrepreneurship for me is basically serving people and falling in love with your ideal customer, or just falling in love with a group of people like you, education revolutionaries, and trying to serve them in the best possible way. I think that's true entrepreneurship for me. I know it's a lot bigger, but yeah, that's the essence for me, and the key. And it's not even made up by me. Like, read even marketing books. Good marketing books will tell you that you need to create your customer avatar profile and then figure out what is important to them. And that's where we get back to the topic. What's important? God, I'm playing myself around this topic, am I? Because it's a topic that is dangerous to answer. Like, me telling you what I believe is important is dangerous because it could lead your brain to not want to do the work itself. Our brains are designed to take the easiest path. So if I'm telling you what is important, and or even what I believe is important for me and probably a lot of other people, it could mean that your brain is just gonna tell you, oh, cool, then I'm gonna take this as important, or like that's what's happening. All kinds of people from around you are gonna tell you, ooh, this is important, or this is important, and your family is, your school is, your mates, your peers are gonna tell you what is not necessarily through words, but through their actions, what is important. And I started to talk about death because death and the realization of mortality helps you discover what is important for yourself first. And or it's not just a useful concept, it's a reality that we all definitely share. So at some point in education, it should definitely be considered, and as early as possible, potentially. And then I feel like something that is part actually of, like, even Plato already said, yeah, getting that authority bias in there, good, that's great. Name dropping freaking philosophers, but basically the two most important things that if you master those in life, you're kind of good. basically loving and working. And loving doesn't mean necessarily, yes, I pulled up a book. Loving doesn't mean like having sex a lot or having a relationship per se. It means having the skill of love and the skill of organizing yourself so you can create value. That is the work part, and the love part is the skill of love. Erich Fromm, another good book. So yeah, but then we go into all the other meta skills, meaning the skill of loving and creating good relationships, and the skill of work both require Temet Noske, the oldest phrase in all personal development, which is know thyself. It's actually like the most fundamental part. And yeah, we should teach humans about the humans' situation, humanity's situation, and about the nature of being a human, and how we are all we are all very interesting. I wanted almost to say flawed, but it's not right, because it would put a connotation towards our differentness, and it could be useful if understood and used in a healthy way. But yeah, there are of course things that generally will hurt you more in life. But it's probably about how you deal with all of them, and even the things that you think could hurt you or would generally hurt people more in life. I believe if you use them in the correct way, they can actually even serve you to create a better life. Try to prove me wrong. uh, yeah, go for it. and then the meta skill of like deciding what is important, learning how to learning how to focus and manage oneself. They all fall underneath, though, learning how to work and learning how to love in a way. Even knowing thyself, like a subcategory of both, the vesica piscis of both. All right. So, we typically have an interview section that would end about now, and then I would go over to the news section. And a small content section, but yeah. I didn't even go into the should ask questions because I have a bunch of them written down. But I found this conversation the conversation that I had with you kind of good. Even though they weren't like, so, Momo. Oh, now I'm doing it, I guess. So, Momo, why the hell do you care so much about changing education? or and I would say, oh no, I don't care about changing education. I just care about revolutionizing education. That's why the title is Education revolution life. Okay, so what's the difference between changing and revolutionizing education? Well, the difference is that changing education, I'm going to quickly close the window there. Changing education or the education system has been happening for the last 100 years, but the revolutions in education are starting to happen and have been tried but haven't happened, because what change means in that context is basically them, or people trying to adapt the current educational system to the modern standard and trying to adapt it so far that they can still build on the principles and the foundation that it's built on, but change its form so it's still acceptable. And revolution is something different. Revolution would be more revolution would be more of a redesign of it. Basically, that's what I'm talking about with education revolution. Basically, understanding that the foundation, the paradigm that the current educational system is built on is not the correct one, is one that is deeply flawed. And that is where we could jump into the news section, because and don't make it news, but make it old news. But before we do that, I will go back to you and say, and why I care about changing education is not changing education, revolutionizing education, is because I fell in the same trap. My standard answer would be it's because it's the most effective way to make long-term positive change in the human consciousness and meaning in the state of human well-being. The the best point of attack, if you want to increase the well-being of humankind long term, is probably education, as that is something that you could change relatively. Everything is relative compared to like changing how everyone parents their children and so on. I think you can change how everyone is educated, as it's a system, and systems are not per se bad. They they basically govern us, and they can be bad, and they bring out a lot of evil because people can blame the system, and then they can still see themselves as good people while doing evil acts. But for instance, but uh, they also help us organize ourselves and make huge changes on a wide scale. So, but I feel like there are so many reasons. Like there are egoistical ones. I believe that like solving the biggest problems in the world. Like that's what I remember when I was 16. I was listening to, was it, no, not Ray Dalio. It was um one of them amazing guys out in Silicon Valley. Um God, I've quoted this one a lot before and I don't remember. I was just checking if I have any books from him right here. Um, But basically, I was listening back then to an audiobook, and it said, "Hey, the biggest opportunities," and if I find the quote, I will later put it into the description. The biggest opportunities are where the biggest financial opportunities also, but opportunities in general are solving the biggest world problems. And like there is a part of me that is probably motivated by like, yeah, I want to solve the world's biggest problem, and what is the source and the root of all these big problems, and attacking that, and then not just making it into like making a financial difference in my life, but maybe like I want that significant feeling of like, ooh, I want to be part of history. And yeah, that's probably one egoistical reasons for like a significance seeking reason behind it. And I feel like that was that was definitely a part of it for a long time, and it's probably still is. No, it's definitely still. But the more you look at it, the more crazy it becomes that we don't, we aren't all crazy about trying to maximize the potential of education. Like, it's crazy because it's as bad as almost not caring about the cure of cancer. Like, I feel like so many suicides could be prevented by great emotional education and self-knowledge study, and and having these meta skills of loving and working and knowing what is important to you, and creating a path of meaning for yourself, and knowing how to sustain yourself properly in 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 the current situation that we are in, meaning in capitalism and so on. And I think capitalism can be used for good, uh, definitely. That's why I was talking about earlier about the essence of entrepreneurship if capitalism is used for good. Um, so it's kind of crazy to not try to prevent those deaths, but it's not even about those deaths. It's about minimizing, like, if we look at it from the negative perspective, it's about minimizing all the suffering that people have, uh, n- not just during school, but after school. And I feel like you can minimize a lot of the suffering if you have true good education that makes you feel truly free in your thinking and your being and in your life path, and puts you on a path of service while effectively fulfilling all your needs, including your need for significance, because that's a need that everyone does have. I'm just wanting to make sure you also have a need for significance, even if you tell me that you might not call it that way, but you want to be needed. Everyone wants to be needed. That's like our brain dies and starts crumbling if we feel like we are not needed anymore. The body starts shutting down. That's why we need to give old people still a purpose, uh, still give them that significance of being needed. So yeah, just saying that, but also the other ones of being feeling connected and feeling loved, of feeling and seen, of like, I know that I'm going back to the freaking Tony Robbins six needs. It's, six needs of Tony Robbins are what got me into a lot of this kind of thinking. He got me into personal development when I was 14, but he basically coaches people through helping them achieve certainty. but also uncertainty, because those are two needs. And he always says God, in her infinite wisdom, created two of these needs. And by the way, I'm when I mention God and I talk to homeschoolers, I'm really scared that people think that I'm like some religious fanatic that is not coming from it from a scientific perspective. So just telling you, I'm yes, I am of course spiritual, but in my own way, and it's not affecting anything that I work on. And I'm not belonging to any organized religion, and yeah, for me that's kind of important, because I feel like any organized belief system can cloud my judgment from figuring out reality as close as possible. So yeah, um, and education is not just from a negative side. Like, it has so much freaking potential for, like, I feel like there are so many geniuses that are untapped, so many innovators, so many souls that could lift the whole world up, that could build even more beautiful cities that are interconnected with nature and create symbiosis between nature and technology, that could make this world a much better place. But I feel like a lot of them are suppressed through having their self-worth put down because they didn't fit into that system, and they didn't work in those factory lines, or they even thought that, hey, this doesn't make sense for me, and they dropped out, and then people didn't value them as much for some weird reason. um, I don't know if that's the last part is real, but like I'm kind of convinced of it, but that's because everyone keeps telling me also. But it does reflect a little bit my experience, since I study education and politics, philosophy, and economics. People seem to care more about my opinion on these topics, even though I don't feel like I have learned much through studying them, as or comparatively or relatively to what I have learned through studying it through my own research and curiosity that I had before I started studying these things. And while I was studying these things, I didn't learn the most from studying for the tests, let's say. I did learn through being in that environment, and learn, I did have the opportunity to meet more interesting people through that. So, God, this is a complicated topic, and I love it. Like, what? And that's the other reason why I do it, why I focus on education, because yeah, I think that was also the main reason throughout it all. It's because it's the most beautiful problem to solve. Like, I always loved solving problems, and I always loved lifting people emotionally or somehow, and that's why I was like the lifting people up and moving them emotionally. That's why I wanted to become like actor and director and like create these motion pictures that move people on a mass scale. That was also something. And like, it's combining all the arts into one art form. That's why I love film. And like, yeah, but then the other part was uh, that I wanted to become an inventor or a businessman. And I wanted, like, when I was 6, I asked my mom, hey, what kind of problems do you have, frustrations in your life that where I can invent something maybe. And whatever she told me, I came up with some weird invention. And then I got my first book was that I paid for, was a Brockhaus of all the inventions that and figuring out what I could still create. And like, the 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 coolest thing about trying to solve the educational system problem is that it's a problem that I won't be able to solve in my lifetime, and that's exciting to me. It's like, and there are so many micro problems in there, so many, and um, I feel like everyone should have some kind of like if you love solving problems, but I feel like a lot of people would love solving problems if they were a little bit if they trained themselves to do so. But yes, I do have an inclination of doing so since I was a child. But yeah, um, I love solving the most important problem, and I feel like education system is the most important problem, and it's a problem that I can throw everything that I have at it. And for my whole life. And if it's just a small impact that I make there, it's an impact that matters and an impact that I will be happy to look back on and be like, wow, yes, this is something that will continue after I'm dead. And there we go back to mortality. I feel like it's like also that desire of becoming immortal through sharing, through education. Well, we all try to escape it somehow, don't we? That was super interesting. Thank you for that conversation. Good questions. Good questions. Now, back to old news. We were talking about the foundation of education and why I feel like it needs to not be changed but revolutionized, or the foundation needs to be switched out, and that's kind of hard to do. And we're not revolutionizing it, and I can then talk about how we can actually do it, and we're gonna talk about politics versus entrepreneurship versus other ways of potentially solving and then revolutionizing education. If you guys want, we don't have that much time left. We have like 14 minutes. But basically, education, the education that we all know is that we all know. You could be watching from America, or you could be watching from Germany, from Austria, from most parts of the world. For really weird historical coincidence, most of our education system is from the Prussians, which, when they designed their system, they were literally trying to train people for obedience and for having the ability to do the most basic tasks, and then conditioning them to do them through an authority figure. And that's where you already see like the paradigm of like the management from top down, and the information is best given from the top to the lower ones, and we don't have any network effect that we have where the best ideas come actually from the best people with the best ideas, you know. The not the best information and the best and the or the most true information one, but the information that the authority figure has. And ah so I feel like everyone needs to, like every one of us education revolutionaries, not everyone in the world. I was talking a lot about earlier about people in general, but we really need to research the history of education. And I feel like it's really hard to trust someone like me to explain it to you if you don't have proper, if I don't have proper sourcing. And I will make a video with proper sourcing where I will dive deep. But the most important thing is it says even, why was the Prussian education system created? Born of Prussia's military failings in the Napoleonic Wars, the German kingdom developed an education system designed to indoctrinate children year by year from age 6 to 16 into full compliance with the state and the military leaders. That's why the education system, like that's the foundation of our education system, because people then copied it like there were two people that copied it over to America basically, and that's also where our German education system developed from, and that's and then a lot of people copied basically us, and there are a few countries that do it differently, but God, don't you see why the foundation is forked up majorly? Ah, and yes, and basically, another way of formulating it that I really liked was that the education system is also trying to build the global informational system, basically a computer of the old times, of people that know how to read to basic maths and so on, but listen but function well in a system, and I should stop reading while I'm doing this live stream. I was reading the source, and if it's that I was reading earlier and trying to see if it's legit. It's I do know it's legit information, but the source wasn't that medium.com, you know. It's all right. Well, so many things that I want to communicate with you. Basically, I'm gonna start meditating more so I don't lose my train of thoughts during these live streams as much. And um, and not get distracted while talking here. That's the difficulty of being live. But yeah, and because I'm not starting to meditate because of that. That's not true. The true reason is because I feel like it could increase my dopamine levels so I can focus more on what's important, and it could cut out a lot of clutter in my mind and make me able to work not just when I'm extremely tired or on a hardcore deadline, but makes me able to do work that matters without a deadline, without tiredness, because it will set me free a little bit of trying to do everything just for the next dopamine hit and for like checking busy work off my schedule. And yeah, a lot of people have probably experienced that as well, and it's kind of fitting to the topic. So interesting tangent, I guess. But why you are able to work when you're tired is basically because you block your dopamine, or you block your dopamine in general, and then you're also not as motivated by dopamine, and then you can work, but you can just work some almost like a robot and not on your fullest and highest ability. But throughout the day, we are all like mice are there are a lot of experience with mice and dopamine, but mice, human beings, we are all motivated a lot through dopamine hits, and that's all right. Like dopamine motivates us to do good things, but there are now systems that are designed to, like, I guess I'm a little bit addicted to watching YouTube videos because I learn a lot there and it's kind of valuable, but I now turned off the newsfeed of YouTube or Facebook, of all these platforms that are designed to trick your dopamine system into giving you much more dopamine than what you uh, would get from even from working or from doing something that's meaningful to you, because you get short-term lots of little rewards that are empty because you're not actually creating anything of value. And that that makes it harder for you to work on anything that is of value, because you don't get as many dopamine hits. So I want to meditate and take myself a little bit more off of that, so I can more intentionally say, okay, first I'm going to work on these things that won't get me as many dopamine hits, and then I will selectively try to still use these platforms, but with care, you know. All right, we only have 5 minutes left through all my tangents. I will also no, it's really easy. Just type in history of education, go to the Wikipedia article. I don't recommend that you actually use the Wikipedia article, but you can scroll to the bottom, go to the sources, or read the most interesting parts, or read the Wikipedia article, find the most interesting parts, and then go to the sources of that part, and then read those sources to check if they are actually accurate. Or just like they invented yeah. Just research the history of education and figure out if you believe that education is built from the right principles. A great book I remember was from Thomas Mann. He's like a teacher of the year, history of education. It was a really good book from him. I think it's Thomas Mann, but I will also put that into the description. And yeah, that was an interesting experiment. Do put a comment and let me know how you found this different episode. I feel like I'm gonna go back to ones where I have clearer segments and an interview guest and a little bit more preparation, particularly for sources. I feel like it would have been better if I would have done this interview with myself with more research in advance and a clearer outline, and then it would have been much greater. So maybe I will try again without a like if I won't find a good guest, then I will try to do this similarly to this time, and trying to make it funnier, but yeah. All right, now to end this stream, but it was really good for Christmas and just for like coming down. What is important? What is important for us education revolutionaries is to think more about what is important about death, and what is most important also through this Christmas time, but in education, in my opinion, is or are the relationships that we have, the moments of love, of magic, and the ability to organize yourself to serve people in an effective way where people are willing to pay for the value that you give. So working, I guess. And to do both those things well, it's really important to figure out a few meta skills, meta skill of knowing thyself, temet noske, is the most important. And then knowing how to learn self-organize, which is part of basically working, and learning emotional fitness and learning how emotions work, which is, I guess, more on the relationship side, but they of course intersect. And learning the meta skill of deciding, because that is what we have to do. We have to decide, which comes from decidere, which means to cut off a lot of beautiful, a lot of good experiences, a lot of interesting knowledge. We have to decide to not learn certain things and not do certain things, or doing the things that truly matter, for doing the most important things. Doing and being present and being there and spending your weeks, your 4,000 to 5,000 weeks, maybe 6,000, who knows? Maybe less, interestingly, in a way that you in a way that you feel good about and that you know was worth it somehow. And in a way where you focused on things that actually matter to you and to the world, but more importantly, I guess, in your life, to you and to the people that you care about. Yeah, I guess that's what it all comes down to. All right, we're done. That was a different kind of education revolution life, but it's so freaking essential for education to figure out what is actually important and to listen to the people that are in education and figure out with them what is important and teach them and help them understand what is important, but don't put it on them from on top. If we like, I would, I had a conversation with my sibling recently. Yes, there's like two things. If education would have been more life, more feeling alive, not just like you sitting there not able to move and or shouldn't move, and you being like directed from on top to like function and so on. If it was more life, and I had probably just more life teachers sometimes, that's one part, that are just like, ooh, wow, I get to share with you. If education was more live, but or if my education was more live, or if my education would have been about things that I feel like will actually matter to me and are truly important, I probably wouldn't have gone down this path of like trying to revolutionize education. So, yay! But yeah, because they are really freaking important. And we could still survive on the old principles. We could thrive on the old principles. No, it would break the old principles, I guess. But maybe, like, yeah, we would as humanities would probably thrive if they would truly figure out what is important to the individuals there and show them that they are also important to them, and through their aliveness. I think aliveness was just a keyword for them showing me that I'm important to them. Yeah. That's a cool ending. All right. See ya next week, Saturday, 20 p.m. CEST, for the Education Revolution Live, happening right here, right now, in front of you.